back to Marita. We were talking about your own brushes with the local authorities, and an example of local authorities that interpret the guidance or whatever the government's putting out in a way that's worst case scenario, really, isn't it?
It hasn't been ideal for us. We have had a bit of a bumpy ride. We started home educating after my eldest went to school many years ago now. It's 12 years, 13, a while, and it was lovely. We enjoyed it so much. We met with the local authority. We were one of those lovely families who say, I've got nothing to hide, so I've got nothing to worry about. And so we welcomed the local authority into our home, and the first local authority we had was Kent, who I know can be rocky for lots of people, but were fantastic for us. They came to our home and it was brilliant. And the lovely man, Jay, was so encouraging. And he told my children that they were very lucky to be home educated and that obviously we were going to do a fantastic job and that he didn't really need to see us again because obviously we were not he was very stretched and he didn't want to spend his short amount of time focusing on families where he knew that the children were being very well educated. So he told me that I could reach out to him if I ever needed anything at all. Um, and that was how it started. And so we thought, oh, this is great. The children absolutely loved it, actually. It was really positive because they were jumping on the trampoline and telling him about the poems that they had read, and he was being really wonderful and encouraging. And they said, oh, Mum, isn't it great? He thinks that our education is amazing. He thinks we're so clever. He loves what we're doing. And so you could see that a local authority could be a positive experience and it could be really wonderful. So there we were, lulled into a false sense of security, and along bowled Bromley when they realized that although our postcode is Kent, we live in Bromley. And so Bromley turned up and they had a tick box process, and I'm not really a tick box kind of a person. And so when they said, we have to have a meeting and then we have to then collect this and then we have to do this, I thought, but you don't though, because other local authorities don't do this. And so I questioned them and they got very cross immediately and started threatening us. And it got our heckles up a little bit to think, why are you being like this? There's no problem here. This is supposed to be a supportive relationship. And so off the back of that, we started writing questions right from the outset. And the long and the short of it was that they denied us our subject access requests. They wouldn't give us any transparency over their process. I learned a lot about the law. I ended up becoming an activist, apparently. And it was all reluctantly. I just wanted to be a home educator and I didn't want to have this negative influence in our lives. But it's, I don't know if I'm explaining myself very, very well. It's draining and it's been a real eye-opener to how badly wrong it can go when local authorities force themselves onto into people's lives. Um, and we're still battling. It's just an ongoing nightmare, to be honest.
And
Uh,
and what I do want to just say for everybody's benefit, Marita, what was your profession?
I was a teacher. I studied education at university and then I became a teacher. I've taught in two different countries. I've taught for 15 years. I had outstanding Ofsteds and they knew all of that.
Which is what makes it also very, very it's just I don't know, it's not even ironic. It's just the you can kind of you get a sense of the pridefulness of and the arrogance
Mm,
of the local authority in that sense, in that, they do not want to back down.
no,
Because I've seen your kids and I know they're doing amazingly in all the things they're doing. Um, and there's really nothing to see,
no.
opinion.
I, the local authority backed themselves into a corner with our family, and rather than apologize and say, sorry, we've made a mistake with you, and rectifying the issues that we had, they've just carried on. The funny thing is, though, when I say to them, you sent a social worker into our home as a first port of call and then didn't share our subject access request. They say we no longer do that. And when you say, did you change your process because after we pointed out that it was unlawful, you had to, and why don't you apologize and now correct our records? They say, oh no, it's just evolving. And thank you for being so cooperative and working with us. And we're not trying to actually, I would quite happily work with them, and to try and create an environment that was positive, because we've had that experience before, and that's what I would love for the people of Bromley. I don't love that so many people are really terrified of the local authority in our area. I don't want to be scared of them. I don't like that. For quite some time, we all had a trauma response every time we saw the Bromley insignia. I think that that's really damaging. And I spend a lot of my life thinking about how I protect my children from the harm that has been caused to them by the state. And I think that's a horrible position to have to live in. I mean, we have to think about with this bill, it's miserable actually for us. We are thinking that we'll be first in the firing line. And with the last bill as well that was brought by Baroness Barron with the Conservatives, we also thought that we would be in the firing line. And so it's quite horrible to be the family that know that if someone goes to prison, it may well be me. Um, and that's horrible for my children.
And for no real
No, they have
supporting
no
reason.
concerns. Yes. And it's actually on our record that they say it would be reasonable to assume that the children are in receipt of education that is suitable. And so then, even in their own words, they're being unreasonable. It's not, it's not fair. It's not fair that they treat people like this. And I think that it's very concerning that this is going to be coming to more families, because one of the reasons we've been able to push back, and one of the reasons that I'm still sitting here, is because they really do not have any concerns at all. And I worry my children are not diagnosed with any SEND issues. We are semi-structured. They are very active in the community.
You've got a
They
few
are,
GCSEs behind you now too, don't you?
oh, yes, and A levels now too. So we have qualifications aplenty that, but I worry about other families who aren't doing as many things as we're doing. You know, members of our community, it's quite amusing. We were on school attendance orders, and the members of the education committee at Bromley were contacting us and saying, your children are really musical. Could they please play The Last Post? My eldest plays The Last Post for Laura Trott in Sevenoaks, and my middle child plays The Last Post for Bromley Local Authority in Biggin Hill. And our MP knows my children by sight and name. They wander up to them when they're at events and say hello, and he says hello, and he knows exactly who they are and can ask about all the members of our family. The mayor at the moment is our councillor, and he has presented numerous awards. He's my friend on Facebook. He can see exactly the education opportunities. As soon as I post that my son was harvesting honey and using centrifugal forces and all sorts of things, he's going to know. So all they need to do actually is to ask the members of the education committee to open up their Facebook and look, and they will be able to see exactly what education my children are getting. They really do know. So I worry for the families who haven't got all of the connections that we've got. I mean, if they're doing this to us, what are they going to do to everybody else?
But what has been the cost to your family as well? It's not been just, I mean, besides, we don't want to even start on, you'll get into the financial stuff, but never mind the emotional toll that it's taken.
Mm. It's the costs are in every aspect that you could possibly imagine. So we have costs that are financial. We have it's I think it's taken the biggest toll on me, to be honest. You can probably see, even though I'm blurred, that my husband's in the background. He's just making sure I'm okay. He is amazing. And anyone who knows our family knows that he's amazing. So the children I'm hoping they seem to be very happy, very grounded. It doesn't seem to be bothering them. They sometimes laugh and say that they're the most uneducated children in Bromley. Um, and in a funny way, as they are accepting awards and working with a music scholarship and meeting the Mayor of London or whatever they're doing. I mean, they've been at Buckingham Palace meeting Princess Anne, so they laugh. I don't know. Does this have long-term implications for them? Probably. For me, it's very stressful. I find it hard. I have to be very careful to protect myself.
Yeah.
I think my capacity is restricted. I spend a lot of time writing silly letters that I wish I didn't. I mean, I spend a lot of time
I
reading.
can imagine.
Um, and sometimes I just step back and vanish because it's just too much and I need to go, and have time out. So I
Yeah.
try, I've come up with lots of, I go walking a lot. I live in the countryside, so it's nice. I can go for a country walk, take a dog, try and unwind. We've just got a paddle board. We're quite excited. I love the water, go out on the water. Um, yeah, those sorts of things, I think.
Okay, well, Joe would like to ask you a question.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah.
go for it, Joe.
Hi,
Hi,
Marita.
Hi,
We
Joe.
we do know each other a bit, and we've met in London. Marita
Hey.
kindly met me, and we went
Oh,
round.
great.
Um, so obviously being a qualified teacher, my question, if we think about the bill coming in, is that a lot of local authorities do employ former social work. From my research, they employ former social workers and often former teachers. And you had difficulty even though you can speak the same language, you can use educational terms, you can describe something as educational that might be on the surface to somebody who doesn't know about home education seem like play. And I wonder what you think about the families who maybe are not teachers, don't have the same educational language, so might not know how they're going to describe their home education, which we know might work really well, especially if it's like in an unschooly fashion, or if they've come out with some school trauma and they need some time to deschool or unschool for a period. How difficult do you think this might be for those families who, when the bill comes in, who might then face inspection?
Oh, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult. I think it will be stressful. I think knowing that someone's coming to observe you and that the judgment is either they think you're okay or they're going to remove all your human rights is an incredibly stressful position. It's not supportive. So from the outset, it's a horrible position to be in. I think they will be trying their best to protect their children, and it will be they'll I think actually it will just be hard because we'll be needing to provide a lot of extra support to help these people to be able to word it. But I would go further. When I went up and met Baroness Barron with the last bill, one of the questions I asked her was, how are you going to make sure that these judgments are correct? Because as a teacher, if you don't know the child, you can't know if it's appropriate. And then if you don't know the curriculum, you don't know what you're assessing. And we have so many checks and balances when we have the national curriculum, we have the actual exam boards, we have a mark guide, we have answers, and yet still the people who are paid to mark the exams make mistakes when it's that structured and everything is known, and you can still appeal and get your exam remarked and change your grade. They're not putting any of those measures in place in something which is going to be much, much more difficult to assess. And when the assessment is wrong, you don't just get a D or a B, you get all your human rights removed. And I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. I think it's going to cause a huge amount of damage, and I think that there's going to be a large number of very, very stressed people.
And the thing
Mm,
is, you're not able to fully enjoy the time with your children,
No.
the activities. I mean, I have some resentment for the I don't know, it must be years built up of hours that have been spent pushing back against the different attempts. against home education. And I know that a lot of the politicians, they don't see the big deal. They're like, oh, it's just, we've got to know where the children are, got to keep them safe. But they are not the ones dealing with a local authority who's got to be in their bonnet or has a bias, has a prejudice. There was no reason for the local authority to approach you in that way.
No.
There was no grounds for them to treat you or to even, to me, I would take one look at a family like yours, but that's not even the thing. It
They
shouldn't
have
be
no
about a
concern.
family looking this way or family looking that way. It's about, is this right for this child? And they're the partnering. If the local authority want to work with families, let's partner for the best interests of the child. Let the parent know you have the child's best interests at heart, truly, sincerely, not in a platitude sort of way or something. That's just something we say. Oh, child left behind, and then but and then it's a partnership, but with the family needing to, the parents should have carry more weight in that respect because the child. And problem is that many of these children that are being home educated now, they were worse off in the school, regardless, even if the parent is not a teacher. And the parent, maybe they're not able to do GCSEs, maybe they're not able to go and play a musical instrument. The child may still be better off at home than being in that school environment. And that is where the problem is coming, is that there's this assumption. And I was in a meeting, I work in an education related job, and I was in a meeting where one of the senior staff members said, well, we all know that the safest place for them to be is in a school. And I really I wanted to challenge it. It wasn't really the time and the place, but there is that assumption.
Absolutely.
And it isn't borne out by evidence.
No, you're spot on, actually.
Safe place for children.
When I was meeting with Baroness Barron as well in the last schools, but another question I asked was, if you deem a family to be failing in education, you're not going to provide support for them and help them to keep their children in the environment you want. You're going to be forcing them to go to a school. So when you force these children into a school which they don't want to go to, removing everyone's human rights and making them utterly miserable, are you going to be forcing them to go to the local failing school that's the only place that actually has spaces? And why would you be forcing a family that you think are failing into a failing school? And they couldn't answer that either. And so you can see they're definitely going to be forcing families into failing schools.
And actually, our minimum standard for our children should be whatever the school's minimum standard is.
Yes.
If the school is allowed to have children that can't read and write, well, then
they
can't judge me.
They have P levels to measure progress, which are absolutely tiny little incremental steps for children who are in schools. And will they be assuming that a child who's not making progress, which is normal, falls under P level progress? Because why wouldn't they?
There's room for it in a school.
Absolutely.
There needs to be room for it in a home. And I'm not suggesting that because that's not the norm anyway in the majority of home educating families I come across.
No.
There's no such thing really. Every child I've seen has been well cared for, well raised, and is thriving and curious and eager to learn and grow. But it is just this very idea, and they're looking down their noses at parents as if parents cannot make the grade possibly. How could you possibly? And it's rife. The rhetoric is in all the conversations with people on every level. And I did see there was an article with a lady that was interviewed, and she was saying how it's exhausting. It's exhausting to have to respond to these things all the time when people can't be bothered to go and do the research and find out what, just spend a bit of time in someone's home just observing, or be around some families. We will need to, we've got a few minutes, but we will, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add, Marita.
Oh, if I start, I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
There's just so many things to talk about with home
But I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful that you have been vocal, because somebody like you has to meet with the Barons of the world.
It's terrifying.
And and I know that we do often say, when they say, oh, we need somebody to meet with this person, it's like, Marita, because we know that you can articulate and you can make a strong case of just where these things can go wrong, in the worst way.
Yes, it's really unfortunate, and I do just wish that I could have back the home education I had, and I wish that they were providing support. I really, really wish that when they said we would like to work with home education families and we would like to support them, I wish that actually was a thing, because obviously, if you're going to support home educating families, the very first thing you would do was provide exam access. Why, as a bare minimum, are they not providing exam access? Why are they not providing anything that looks like support? It is not supportive to have a judgmental person come into your home and threaten you with removing your human rights, with nothing to offer, no support. They know that if the state inflicts itself into somebody's lives, it will be damaging. They know it causes harm, regardless of how gently they tread. And yet, in this case, there's no support at all. And I just don't understand why their first port of call is to force children into school. Why is their first port of call not to set up a resource library and say, oh gosh, I think you really maybe need to do a little bit more literacy. But look, all these home educators have donated the resources they're no longer using. Come and have a look. Let's work through. Let's see if there's something that you might like to take that would be supportive and help you, enable you to do something that will jump through our hoop a tiny bit, so that we don't just strip away all your human rights and force your child into a place where the whole family is going to be miserable, and you're actually going to be ruining a classroom environment for other children too, because you don't want to be there. So support would be great. I really hope that the Lords next will be talking about how they can, what support might look like, and I hope that that gets raised in the debates, because I have been incredibly grateful for the House of Lords, I have to say, in all of this process, sitting through and watching how hard they are all trying to get the very best that they can for their children. Yeah, absolutely. They're trying to protect rights. They're trying to make sure that there is protection for children, but also protection for their parents and for their families, and for different ways of life, and for people to be able to have their own pedagogy, to have their own beliefs, and to be able to carry them out. People need to be able to raise their children as they see fit, unless there is a chance of significant harm, not for a family like ours, where it doesn't appear that there's a problem, and the state basically is causing significant harm in our case.
There are, and I think that's where there's this bill doesn't offer any protection against bad actors.
No, and no
to home educators, so it's very unevenly, it's not balanced at all. It's very, very very much weighted in the favor of the local authorities, and with the threats and things like that. It's, as I said in my submission, that is now in the book, Addison's book, is that it's all stick and no carrot. And as I say, I resent the time it takes away from families being able to support their children and be there for their children, when sometimes they're going through quite a difficult time recovering from school trauma. So we've got a couple of minutes, and we're meant to be joined by Simon Squid. So I'm going to just remove, and hopefully he will join us soon. He's got the link as far as I know, and I will share the screen there. So Simon Squibb is also a home educating dad, but he is also a content creator, very, very active on social media, and he has been also using his influence to speak against the bill. So we will be expecting him in a couple of minutes.
He was in the YouTube chat a little while ago.
Yes,
so he has acknowledged and said hi. So
yes, I did see that. And Marita, there were quite a few comments on what you had to say just about school not being the safest place. Often at the moment, schools are drilling preparations for locking down. We've got Jade, who said her son well, he didn't do very well in school, but he would stop talking. But since he's home, he will not stop, and he's thriving and chatting and learning in a way suitable to him. And yeah, so Marita, your story is known, and you are an encouragement to people as well. And I did like the idea of having a resource center. That's for me. Um, and I'm fortunate to be in a local authority where they do actually listen, and they are. Uh, we have one local authority officer who works part time, so she doesn't have the time or the resources to go running after people that don't need to be run after, and she does adopt quite a supportive approach with families that want to home educate, but and where there's no way they could put their child back in a school. So she is very supportive, and we're thankful for that in our local authority.